The moment I saw him, my heart dropped. I froze right there in the lobby, my mind racing with confusion and dread. My hands trembled so much I could barely hold my phone. There he was, Nathaniel, the man I'd been married to for 5 years, standing with his parents, James and Rebecca, beaming with pride, oblivious to the disaster unfolding just feet away. And behind him stood her. The woman I had never imagined, yet there she was, standing with him in our place. In the place where we'd spent so many anniversaries, where we had promised forever. Her name was Eliza. I'd heard whispers, of course, and seen the texts he'd accidentally left open one too many times. But nothing could have prepared me for this. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight of him holding her hand, his arm draped protectively around her, as if they were a family. And to top it off, her 2 children, my replacements, stood there, looking around like this was the happiest day of their lives. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, completely paralyzed. It felt like hours, but it couldn't have been more than a minute. I could hear the soft hum of the lobby's chandelier and the distant murmurs of other guests checking in. But all I could focus on was the scene before me. Nathaniel, my husband, standing there with Eliza, his parents, and their kids, looking like a picture-perfect family. My stomach twisted. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. I swallowed hard, trying to regain control of my breathing. I wanted to shout, to scream, to run up to them and tear him away from her. But I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, helpless. I glanced down at my phone again. A message from my best friend, Tara. "Are you at the hotel yet? Call me when you get there." I felt like a knife had been twisted in my chest. I wasn't there for vacation. I wasn't there for the spa weekend we'd planned together. I was there to see the truth for myself. I had no idea what I was about to uncover, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. The lobby seemed to stretch on forever, the walls closing in. Nathaniel hadn't seen me yet. He was too busy smiling at Eliza, his parents completely unaware of what was really happening. They were going to meet their new daughter-in-law, the one Nathaniel had carefully introduced as his real family. He was introducing them to the life he'd been planning behind my back while I'd been paying the bills, cooking dinner, and pretending everything was fine. And then it happened. Eliza's eyes scanned the room and landed directly on me. There was a flicker of recognition, a momentary pause before her smile faltered. She was looking at me like I was some ghost, her competition for Nathaniel's affections, the woman he'd promised everything to, only to throw it all away. Eliza took a step back, her eyes darting nervously between me and Nathaniel. Her hand gripped one of the children tighter, and my breath hitched. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her everything Nathaniel had put me through, the lies, the betrayals. But instead, I just stood there, fighting the overwhelming urge to run and confront them both. Nathaniel turned to speak to his parents, and in that moment, he finally noticed me. His face went white as he registered who was standing there. A sickening realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He knew what was coming. He knew the end was near. "Maya," he whispered under his breath, as if I were a dream he could wake up from. His voice was hollow, a broken man's attempt at an explanation. His mother, Rebecca, noticed the shift in his demeanor. Her smile disappeared, replaced with a furrowed brow. She glanced back and forth between us, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. I could see the tension creeping into her face as the realization began to dawn on her. She didn't understand yet, but she would. My hands shook violently now, but I didn't care. I needed them to hear this. I needed him to hear this. I took a step forward, my heels clicking sharply against the marble floors. With every step, my anger and sadness began to crystallize into something far more dangerous. This wasn't just about Nathaniel anymore. This was about the lies, the years of pretending, the image he'd built for himself at my expense. I was done pretending. I was done being the clueless wife. I locked eyes with Nathaniel. His breath hitched as if he had been caught in a trap. But he wasn't going to be able to wiggle his way out of this one. Not this time. The silence in the room was deafening. People were starting to notice. The guests in the lobby had slowed their movements, sensing the tension in the air. Some were looking curiously in our direction, probably wondering why a simple check-in had turned into something so uncomfortable. I opened my mouth to speak, and my voice was steady, calm. But my words were razor-sharp. "Well, Nathaniel," I said, the words dripping with venom, "I see you've found your new family. How nice for you." He recoiled like I'd slapped him. His parents shifted uncomfortably, the room beginning to spin around us. But I wasn't done yet. I took another step forward. "But what about the family you already have, Nathaniel? The wife you promised forever to? The one you've been lying to for months while you built your perfect little world with her?" His face was as pale as the snow outside, and I saw his jaw tighten. But still, he didn't speak. He couldn't. There was nothing left to say. I glanced at Eliza, and for the first time, I saw the truth in her eyes. She wasn't the villain here. She was just another victim in Nathaniel's web of lies. "You didn't know, did you?" I said, my voice suddenly softer. "You didn't know he was still married, still living in the same house." Eliza's face drained of color. Her grip on the kids tightened. I could see the panic rise in her. She was beginning to realize the gravity of what had been happening behind her back. I didn't blame her, but I also wasn't going to let her off the hook. I pulled out my phone and unlocked it. A few taps later, I pulled up the screenshots of all the texts, the emails, the hotel reservations, everything. I had the proof. I'd been waiting for this moment. "Here it is, Nathaniel," I said, the words cold and final. "The proof of everything you've been hiding." His eyes widened, and I saw the blood drain from his face as he realized he was out of time. There was no escape now. The truth was out, and there was no going back. I turned to his parents, holding on my phone. "This is what your son has been doing behind your backs. This is the life he's been living, while I've been here, thinking everything was fine." I showed them the reservation, the messages, the receipts. All of it. The silence in the lobby grew heavier as the realization hit them. Bartholomew's face turned from confusion to shock, and then to something darker. Ruth took a step back, her hand pressed to her mouth in disbelief. Nathaniel stood there, frozen. I could see the panic rising in his chest as he began to realize the full extent of the storm he had just unleashed. But I wasn't done. Not yet. The silence in the lobby was suffocating. I watched as Nathaniel stood there, staring at me, at the phone in my hand, unable to process what was unfolding. His face was pale, his eyes wide, and his lips trembled, like he was waiting for some miracle to save him. His parents, too, were frozen, their gazes flicking between me, Nathaniel, and Eliza, who stood there with her kids, her whole world crumbling in real time. Eliza finally spoke, her voice small, almost like a whisper. I didn't know. Nathaniel told me you'd left him, that you didn't want kids, that you didn't care about him anymore." Her hands fidgeted nervously, tugging at her sleeve, trying to hold it together for her children, who were staring up at her with wide, confused eyes. My heart squeezed, and for the briefest moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. She hadn't asked for any of this. But that sympathy quickly evaporated as the full weight of Nathaniel's betrayal hit me again. He'd not only lied to me, but he had crafted a perfect world with her. A world that wasn't real. I glanced over at him. His mouth opened and closed, like he was searching for the words to explain himself, but no words came. His eyes darted to his parents, then back to me, his face contorting with guilt. But there was something else behind his eyes, something colder. A mix of anger and desperation, like he was more concerned with salvaging his reputation than owning up to his actions. I crossed my arms, letting the silence stretch between us. "How long, Nathaniel?" I asked, my voice steady, but dripping with the rage I was holding back. "How long were you planning this? How long were you going to keep up this charade?" "Please, Maya," he begged, finally finding his voice. "We can talk about this." "Talk about it?" I interrupted, my tone sharp. "What's left to talk about? You've already lied to everyone, including me, including your family. I've been living in that house for months, pretending everything was fine, while you were busy creating a new life with her." I turned to Eliza, who was still holding the kids close, as if she could somehow shield them from the truth. "You know he's still married, right?" I asked, my voice softer now but no less cutting. "You know he's been living a double life?" Eliza's face turned pale, and I could see the realization washing over her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Her eyes flicked nervously to Nathaniel, as though she was hoping for some kind of reassurance. But there was nothing. He was just standing there, completely broken. I could see the moment when the cracks began to show in his carefully constructed image. He looked like a man who had lost control. He had thought he could manage this. He had believed he could juggle his two worlds without consequences. But now, there was no escape. "Why?" I asked, my voice quiet now but piercing. "Why go to all this trouble? Why build a life with her kids, when you had me, when we were supposed to have our future together?" Nathaniel didn't answer. His eyes were glued to the floor, like he couldn't bear to look me in the eye. The shame was all over him, but there was something else, too, a flicker of something dark, something defensive. He wasn't just ashamed. He was angry. Angry that I had caught him. Angry that the lie was over. I wasn't going to let him off the hook. Not this time. "How long, Nathaniel?" I repeated, my voice cold now. "How long have you been lying to everyone? To me? How long have you been planning to leave me?" A beat passed. He finally looked up at me, his eyes filled with frustration. "I didn't plan this. I didn't want it to happen like this," he said, his voice shaking. I thought I could fix things. I thought if I could get her to understand, if I could have the life I wanted." "The life you wanted?" I spat. "You're unbelievable. You tore apart everything we had because you couldn't wait? You couldn't wait to leave me and start over with her?" The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of everything I had wanted to say for the past few months, but had kept buried deep inside me. I had been playing the dutiful wife, the supportive partner. I had been fighting for our marriage, trying to make it work, while he was already making plans to replace me. Nathaniel's parents were still standing there, caught in the middle, unsure of what to do or say. I could see the betrayal in their eyes, the hurt that their son had put them through, the damage he had done to our entire family. Rebecca's lips trembled as she finally spoke. "Nathaniel, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you come to us if things were this bad?" But he didn't answer. He couldn't. He had no defense. His mother's voice broke through the tension like a crack in glass, sharp and filled with disbelief. "You didn't even give us a chance to help you. You just left us in the dark. All this time, we had no idea. None of us knew what was really going on." I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice rose, filled with years of frustration, pain, and loss. "You didn't just lie to me, Nathaniel. You lied to your parents. You lied to everyone who loved you. You've been playing us all for fools." The room felt smaller now, the air thick with the weight of all the lies. Eliza took a step back, clearly overwhelmed by everything happening around her. Her children stood beside her, watching the scene unfold like they were witnessing a war, caught in the middle of something they didn't understand. I felt a pang of guilt for them, but it didn't change anything. I wasn't going to let Nathaniel get away with it. Then something shifted. It wasn't just anger or disappointment anymore. It was something deeper, darker. It was the realization that I had been living in a lie, that my entire marriage had been a facade. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "You wanted a family, Nathaniel," I said quietly, the words dripping with finality. "Well, congratulations. You got one. But not the one you thought you were going to get. And now, you're going to deal with the consequences." I turned to Eliza, meeting her eyes for the first time without the veil of sympathy. "You might want to get out of this now before it's too late," I said, my voice firm. "Because Nathaniel doesn't know how to fix this. He's already broken everything. And now, you're caught in the wreckage." Eliza's eyes widened in shock. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She looked at her kids, then back at me, and I could see the fear in her eyes. She didn't know how deep this was going to go, but I did. I turned back to Nathaniel, his face still frozen in disbelief. "You can run, but you can't hide. You'll face the consequences, and so will your parents. It's time for the truth to come out. I reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce papers I had been holding onto for weeks. I had no intention of playing nice anymore. He had made his choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. The tension in the lobby was so thick, you could practically cut it with a knife. Nathaniel stood frozen, his face a mask of shock, guilt, and anger. His eyes darted from me to his parents, then back to Eliza, as if trying to make sense of everything that had just exploded around him. I could feel the weight of his desperation in the air. He had never thought this day would come. But now, here I was, unshaken, unwavering, and ready to tear down the life he had been building behind my back. I held up the divorce papers, my fingers cold against the paper. "I've had enough, Nathaniel," I said, my voice steady, but filled with the cold finality I was finally able to summon. "I'm done playing nice. You lied, you deceived, and now it's time to face the consequences." His eyes went wide, and for the first time since I had walked into that lobby, I saw real fear in his eyes. He had no idea how much I knew. He had thought he could manipulate the situation, control the narrative. But now, the truth was laid bare. There was nowhere for him to hide. His mother, Rebecca, stepped forward, her eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "Maya, sweetheart, please. This isn't you. You've always been so strong, so full of love for him. Can't we work through this?" I shook my head, my eyes not leaving Nathaniel. "This isn't about working things out. This is about betrayal. This is about you, Nathaniel, lying to me for months, and now you've brought your new life here, into the very space where we made promises to each other. How could you think I'd just let that go?" Rebecca took a step back, her hands wringing in front of her. I don't know what to say. "I never imagined this, never thought." Her voice trailed off, her eyes now flicking between me and her son. "What happened? How did it get to this point?" I didn't answer right away. The room felt small, suffocating. I could hear the soft hum of the hotel's air conditioning, the distant murmur of guests checking in, but all of it felt like a world away. This was our world now, this small moment of destruction that had been building for months, maybe even years. Eliza, still clutching her kids, looked at me, her expression torn between confusion and something else. Fear, perhaps? She wasn't the enemy here, not really. Nathaniel was. But still, I couldn't let her off the hook. She deserved to know the truth, too. After all, she had been just as much a part of the lie as Nathaniel had. "You told her, didn't you?" I asked, my voice suddenly softer. "You told her that we were done, that I had walked out, that I didn't want kids. You've been feeding her lies, just like you fed me lies. All while pretending everything was fine." Her eyes darted to Nathaniel and then to his parents, who were standing there, utterly shocked. It seemed to dawn on her that maybe, just maybe, she'd been played just as much as I had. "I didn't know," Eliza whispered, her voice shaking. "I didn't know you were still married. I thought. She shook her head, pressing her hands to her temples like she could somehow erase the truth that was now staring her in the face. "Do you really think I would have left him?" I said, the words coming out with a bite. "You think I would just walk away from everything we built together, all because he couldn't tell me the truth? All because he wanted a ready-made family?" Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She was caught between her own guilt and the reality that she'd been a pawn in Nathaniel's game. I didn't blame her. I wasn't mad at her. But it didn't change what had happened. And it certainly didn't change the fact that Nathaniel was the one who had orchestrated this entire mess. "Don't look at me like that," I said to Nathaniel, my voice now rising with anger. "You didn't just lie to me. You lied to your parents, to your friends, to everyone around us. You've been playing a part, acting like the perfect husband while planning your escape. And now look where we are." Nathaniel shifted uncomfortably, his eyes flicking to the floor. For a moment, I thought he might say something, might finally confess. But instead, he took a step back, as though he were trying to distance himself from the wreckage he had created. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, his voice quiet but filled with the arrogance that had been his trademark for so long. I wanted to be happy, Maya. I wanted something real, something that wasn't just a routine. I wanted a family, something I thought we could never have. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and dry in my throat. A family? You thought this was a family? I gestured to Eliza and her kids, still standing in the corner, watching the scene unfold like it was some kind of movie. This is a farce. A joke. And you've been the punchline. Rebecca took another step forward, her hand on her chest, as if the weight of her son's actions was too much for her to bear. Nathaniel, she said softly, her voice breaking. What have you done? How could you do this to your family? I didn't think it would end up like this, Nathaniel murmured, but there was no conviction in his words. No apology. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he'd been caught. I could feel the rage building inside me again. All this time, I had been thinking about how to make him feel the pain he had caused, how to make him see the devastation he had left behind. But now, as I stood there, watching him try to make excuses, I realized something. This wasn't about him. This was about me. This was about me finally taking control of my life. It wasn't about seeking revenge. It was about taking the power back that he had stolen from me. I'm not going to beg you to fix this, Nathaniel, I said, my voice steady and sure. I'm not going to beg you to apologize or make things right. This is over. You've made your choices. And now, you'll have to live with them. His expression faltered, and for a brief moment, I saw a flash of something. Guilt? Regret? But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, replaced with the same cold arrogance that had always defined him. I'll fix this, he said, his voice rising now, defensive. I'll fix everything. I'll make it right. I shook my head, my lips curling into a bitter smile. No, Nathaniel. You don't get to fix this. You don't get to rewrite the story. The truth is out, and you can't take that back. At that moment, Eliza took a step forward, her face a mix of confusion and fear. Maya, I didn't know, she said, her voice shaking. I swear I didn't know. I never meant to hurt you. I thought. I looked at her, and for the first time, I truly saw her. She wasn't the villain. She was just a woman caught up in a lie. A woman who had been fed the same story Nathaniel had been feeding me. I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that she had been played just as much as I had. You didn't know, I said softly, but you know now. I turned to Nathaniel, my eyes burning with the need to make him feel every ounce of betrayal I had ever felt. You will never get away with this. You've destroyed everything. And now it's time for you to face the consequences. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope with the divorce papers, the ones I had been holding on to for weeks. Nathaniel's eyes flicked to them, and I could see the panic rising in his chest. He knew what was coming. He knew this was the end of the road for him. I'm filing for divorce, I said, my voice final. And I'm taking everything. The house. The assets. Everything we built together. You don't get to walk away from this unscathed. His eyes widened, but he didn't respond. He couldn't. The weight of his actions had finally caught up with him, and he had no way out. Enjoy your new life, Nathaniel, I said, turning to walk away. Because this is the last time you'll ever see me. As I walked out of the lobby, my heart pounded in my chest, but for the first time in months, I felt free. The weight that had been crushing me was finally lifted. I had taken control, and there was no turning back. I had won. The cool night air hit my face as I walked out of the hotel, the heels of my boots clicking sharply against the pavement. I could feel the weight of everything I had just done settling over me. Each step, each word I had said, had pushed me further into the truth. The truth I had been running from for so long. But I wasn't running anymore. I was done. Done with Nathaniel's lies. Done with the years of pretending everything was fine while he built a new life behind my back. I had always thought that I would be heartbroken in this moment, that I would break down in tears and wish things had been different. But instead, there was nothing. Just a strange peace, as if the weight of 100 different burdens had been lifted off my shoulders. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It was late, but I knew I couldn't go back to that hotel room. Not after everything that had just happened. Not after I had seen his face, The face of a man who had been caught, who had no idea how to fix the mess he had created. I called Patricia. She had been with me every step of the way. From the first discovery of the hotel reservation to the final confrontation in the lobby, she had been my rock, my guide. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Maya? How did it go? I took a deep breath, standing outside the hotel, watching the lights flicker in the distance. It's done, Patricia. I filed for divorce. It's over. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. I knew what she was thinking. She had seen the evidence, heard the anger in my voice, and knew what this meant. But she was quiet, letting me say it in my own time. You're free now, she finally said, her voice low and steady. You did the right thing. You held your ground. Now you just have to let the pieces fall where they may. I leaned against the wall of the hotel, closing my eyes for a moment. I could still hear the sounds of the lobby echoing in my mind. Nathaniel's desperate, hollow words, Eliza's trembling voice, his parents' shock and disappointment. It all felt surreal, like it hadn't really happened. But I knew it had. I don't know how to feel right now. I admitted, my voice small. I thought I would be relieved, that I would feel lighter. But all I feel is empty, like there's a hole in me. That's normal, Patricia said. You've been living in a world of lies for so long, Maya. You can't expect it all to disappear in an instant. It's going to take time, but you will heal. And you'll come out stronger for it. I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. Patricia's words were a balm, but they didn't change the fact that Nathaniel's betrayal had left a scar I didn't know how to heal. The quiet hum of traffic in the distance reminded me that the world was still turning, that everything around me was moving forward, even if I wasn't ready to. I had taken a step today, but the road ahead was still unclear. I need to get away for a while, I said finally. I can't go back to that house. Not right now. Take all the time you need, Patricia told me. I'll make sure everything is in place for the divorce proceedings. And when you're ready, we'll hit him where it hurts. He won't get away with any of this. Not with his career, not with his reputation. I've got connections, Maya. We'll make sure the world knows who Nathaniel really is. I smiled at that. It felt good knowing that I had someone in my corner, someone who would fight with me. Someone who knew how to tear down the man who had torn apart my life. I'll be in touch, I said, my voice more steady now. Thanks, Patricia. I'll figure out what's next. But for tonight, I just need to breathe. We said our goodbyes, and I hung up the phone, feeling a little lighter, a little more like myself. As I walked down the street, the city lights blurring in my peripheral vision, I realized something. This was my chance to start over. To rebuild. I wasn't going to let Nathaniel's betrayal define me. I was better than that. I had always been strong, and I would be strong again. I found myself at a small cafe on the corner of the street, its warm lights glowing through the windows, inviting me in. I wasn't hungry, but I needed the comfort. I needed the normalcy. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside, and the barista smiled at me from behind the counter. Hi, what can I get you? She asked cheerfully. I hesitated for a moment, then decided. A hot chocolate. Make it extra sweet. The barista nodded and began preparing my drink, and I found an empty seat by the window. I watched the people outside, walking briskly in the cold night air, their breaths visible in the chilly breeze. They had no idea what I had just been through. They didn't know about the lies, the heartache, or the months of pretending. And, in a way, that was comforting. For once, I was just another person, sitting in a cafe, lost in my thoughts. The hot chocolate was placed in front of me, steam rising from the cup. I wrapped my hands around it, savoring the warmth. It was strange, how something as simple as a hot drink could bring a sense of calm in the midst of chaos. I took a sip and leaned back in my chair, letting the heat from the mug seep into my cold hands. There was still so much I needed to process. So much I needed to figure out. But for tonight, I was going to allow myself this moment. Just as I was lost in my thoughts, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my sister, Amy. Maya, I just saw something on social media. Nathaniel's been posting pictures with Eliza and the kids. He looks so happy. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. My heart sank as I read her message. Of course Nathaniel was posting pictures. He was trying to make it all look perfect, like nothing had changed. Like he hadn't just shattered our world. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I couldn't let his actions affect me anymore. Not tonight. Not ever again. I finally typed back. It's over, Amy. I filed for divorce today. It's done. I'm done with him. I'm done with all the lies. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. I'm so proud of you. You're stronger than you know. I'm here for you always. I smiled, the warmth in my chest spreading as I read her words. No matter what Nathaniel did, I still had people who loved me. I still had my family. I looked out the window again, the city lights flickering like stars in the distance. I was going to be okay. I didn't need Nathaniel or his lies. I had everything I needed right here. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I know that there are over 3 million channels on YouTube, but it will mean a lot if you subscribe to this channel to support our growth. It is free and completely safe if you help us grow.